All right. All right, guys. It's Jake, Loaf, Jewel for the bakery. Stormwind's illest paladin. And I've got one of my fellow pallies here today. It's my homie Ish. What's good, my brother?
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, aka Vibe King Ishi out here. You know what I'm saying? I'm a warrior paladin, so that's why you see the swords behind me right now. You know what I'm
Let's
saying?
go.
I ain't got my armor on, but I got the robe. You know what I'm saying? So we feeling good, baby. Got that dragon energy flowing. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get that dragon energy flowing. Like in Jackie Chan when he was going and getting those 12 talismans. You remember that show? He was trying to
Yes,
find the
yes,
he's got the
yes.
dragon power.
Umo gue faizi
Oh, yo,
tao.
you're like
You can
busting
never
out with
forget.
some of this. Yo, I don't remember it
Yo,
that well. Good for
Yo,
you.
that was a mantra right there. I used to watch that because if I remember correctly, right, I believe that was like the first show that would come on like WB64 or
Yeah,
whatever.
probably.
You had to get up exactly at 9 a.m. You know what I'm saying, to catch the Jackie Chan adventures because dude, that was tapped in, and the Dragon Talisman was my favorite one because if I remember correctly, that was you either got like laser beams or it was like fireballs that you could
Yeah, you
shoot.
got like
The
lasers or
Dragon
fireballs or
Talisman was
something. Yeah,
always
it
my
was
favorite
strong.
one.
It was really strong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy that you just said that. That's
All
that's
right, well, you
that's
know what it
why
is.
I'm gonna
We
have to go
gotta
back and watch that.
Yeah, we both need to rewatch that. That might be the second part of this interview. So we've got
Yeah.
some pretty serious stuff that we're talking about today, but I think it's going to be great that you and I are tackling it because we've known each other for years since college. We've
Mhm,
played shows together. We ran away to New
mhm,
York together. We have done plenty of adventures, and we both have a shared experience having gone inpatient, which is something that not everyone has experienced, and it's something that there's a huge stigma and a lot of questions about. So I think it'll be really exciting for us and for others to hear from two people that have actually gone to a psych ward to get better, to heal, and also just like what that wildness kind of is like and what maybe can lead up to it, what the actual situation's like, and obviously where we're going from there. And we can also end on some of the things that you've just experienced in this last month too, because we can't really brush aside that either. But we'll save that as a surprise, as if for the end of this.
mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. No, yeah, absolutely, man. I just want to, I think it's the first thing I want to say, right, is it's interesting because we were both in New York, right, when we had, I ended up going to Ohio, but, I know you had your kind of whole journey in New York. And New York, and the way that they handle inpatient is a lot
Uh-huh.
rougher than the way that Ohio and specifically UC handles it. But if anybody knows the story of Adam and Eve, right, I always say they call New York the Big Apple because once you take a bite of it, you learn the truth. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah,
You get all the
totally,
knowledge. You
totally.
get it all. But yeah, man, we can jump right into it.
All
And
right,
I'll
so
just give a quick. Go
yeah,
ahead.
give us the quick and
Go
dirty. You
ahead.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
People
I'll
love to hear that.
yeah I'll just give you guys kind of like what triggered it, right? Kind of how the beginning adventure went, and then we'll get like the quick Spark Notes version, just so you guys understand, and then we'll go a little deeper into some of the more specific points, I'd say. So for me, right, this all happened while the George Floyd thing happened. It was
Right.
literally immediately during the riots, right? So for me, as a black man, right, as a melanated man, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at all this craziness go down. There's crazy things happening, right? Where, for example, my girlfriend's parents had reached out and said that there were people rioting in like the shopping malls, right? By them that, and it's like an hour away from like downtown Chicago, right? And I looked at that and I was like, yo, there's no one rioting there, right? And then her parents drove around and it turns out that the cops had shut down everything in the suburbs, right? But what had actually happened is one single lady who knew the suburbs was going around making false police reports that there were rioters going around. So literally, The cops
Wow.
had shut down, told everybody to like stay, like state of emergency, basically.
Mhm.
Home Depot called everybody and said, "Oh, like, you know, we're closing all the Home Depots, blah blah blah, this and that."
Sure.
Right? And then her parents go drive around and there's nothing going on, right? So essentially, what I'm learning, right, at this time is like there's one single agent of chaos, and things are, you know, that can make things go crazy, right? So at this point, this is really where, and this is probably 2 or 3 days before I really go into inpatient, right? At
Right.
this point, I'm just questioning
By the
everything,
way, by the
right? I'm
way,
like,
those are
what's
glorious
real?
times. That week before you go, that like slight meltdown beforehand. I've got some real prime like stuff that always occurs right there. So
Yeah.
I get that. I get that.
To this day, right? It's a year later now, and to this day, I still have to go back and be like, okay, what, you know, what was real during that time and what was fake?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just to like,
Totally.
you know what I'm saying? Just to like sparse it out. But that was definitely fake. You know what I'm saying? And that was kind of like the real trigger for everything, right? And that's when I was just like, yo, what the heck is actually going on here, right? So at the time, I was actually prescribed Adderall, right?
Oh,
I had been
my
taking
favorite.
Adderall at that time for, yeah, exactly, right? Like it's always the Adderall. And
It's
here's
always
the
the
problem. If
Adderall.
you actually read the side effects, if you read the side effects of Adderall, like a manic episode is actually one of the side effects of Adderall. So who knew, right? Who knew?
Dude, who reads the bottle?
Um
Oh God.
no
Oh,
one. Yeah,
no
if you
one. Yeah. Wow.
even if you even, you know, if you get them prescribed, right? But
Yeah.
basically, I was going to one of those doctors, you know what I'm saying, where it was you go in there for 60
Look, they
seconds,
give out
you
they give
tell
out
him that
Adderall.
you
They
can't
give out
focus,
Adderall prescriptions like candy. You know what I'm saying?
like candy, literally
Like
like candy.
candy.
So, long story short, right? Long story short, your boy is, you know, I'm taking my Adderall. Typically, I'm taking like 5 milligrams, right? I'm prescribed 20 milligrams, but usually I take 5 to 10 a day, right? Now I'm taking like 10, 20 at a time. You know what I'm saying? I stayed up straight for like 2 days, right? Two
Uh-huh.
days. I'm
Oh yeah.
basically going down the rabbit hole, right? You're going all the way down the rabbit hole, right? You're searching stuff on the internet. You're trying to like figure out like what's real, what's fake, who do I believe, right? Are my have my friend, right? The main thing that I remember at that time is thinking, have my friends been, you know, coercing me this whole time to like do certain shit to me? You know what I'm saying? It was very weird, right? I
Yeah,
had a
yeah. It's
whole
you don't
manic,
know who to trust, right? Like you don't know who to trust,
exactly,
and you actually are actively making like you're imagining things that they did wrong, like your friends, your family. Because I did this too, where you're thinking like, oh, they're doing something wrong to me, when in reality they may not even be doing anything. You could completely be creating these realities and these stories within your own head. Um,
exactly.
and that's one of the very dangerous things where like as you're trying to get help or as people are trying to help or even as you're trying to help yourself, you don't know where to turn because um you're so like isolated and you're isolating yourself from all these stimulus because you think that there's some sort of master plan against you. You know what I mean? There's some sort of
Exactly.
espionage that's going on. So I totally get that. I was there too.
Pure, pure
So
paranoia, right? It
paranoid,
went
dude.
from,
I thought I was gonna get shot coming home from the studio for no reason. I remember turning to
exactly.
Lauren. I remember turning to Lauren and being like, I'm so mad that the Uber dropped us off like 3 blocks from the apartment. Like this is where I'm gonna get popped. You know what I mean? And like there was just zero reason to be that paranoid whatsoever. I mean, I'm in a good neighborhood in Brooklyn, you know what I mean? Like it's just not that serious. It's just not that serious.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
that's
but
the thing too, right? Any little thing that seems off, right? You're just like you overanalyze it, right? So like
right.
the Uber's just like, oh, I overshot your apartment, like super sorry, bro. And then you're like,
Yeah.
bro, why'd you overshoot the apartment? Like, my apartment's it's 3 blocks
It's three
down. Like,
blocks
what are we
back.
doing
Like,
right now? Like,
is
what are
this
you
a
actually
setup?
doing?
Is this a setup?
Just loop around, bro. Yeah, exactly. Like
Is
it
this a
seems
setup?
too,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah,
Is Uber in on this? You
yeah,
know what I'm
dude.
saying? Like
Corporate
seriously though,
Uber
seriously,
is
you
getting
know.
hits, dude. Oh my
Yo,
God.
Uber is actually if you've seen John Wick, the League of Assassins,
Yeah,
whatever
they're
that
the League
is,
of Assassins,
that's what Uber is a
100%. It's
part of.
actually
That's
Uber, corporate Uber. No, they
that's
have a pretty
that's
bad rep.
yeah,
And maybe that's what it
it's
is.
the pay. Well, you know about the PayPal mafia, right?
Oh my
We'll get
God.
into that
We'll
later.
get
We'll
it.
get
That's
it.
another
Don't
video.
make.
That's
We'll
another
get
video.
into
Yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah.
Look.
Okay,
So
so
look, that is
you're
another
having
video.
paranoia.
All right. So look, I'm having paranoia, right? Basically, what ends up happening is I'm essentially going fully into this manic episode, right? And I'm just kind of like, first is like pronoia, right? So there's pronoia, then there's paranoia, right? Pronoia is when you think the universe is working for you, right? And then paranoia is when you think the universe is working against you, right? So it went from pronoia. I'm talking to my mom. She's like, okay, like, you need to go talk to your friends. Like, you need to, like, you could come home soon. Like, I'm thinking everything's cool. I'm thinking my mom is literally like playing some type of game with me, right? Where she's like, a part of some like secret society or something like that, where she's like trying to lead me to certain steps so that I can like
Right?
fulfill my destiny, right? Like
Oh, dude,
I was literally on a World of Warcraft quest.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
You thought you were
it
earning a
went from
reputation. You were about to get your title. They were going to, bring you
mm-hmm,
into the brotherhood or the
mm-hmm,
motherhood, if you will.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
you know,
mm-hmm. And
look, I feel
yeah.
it. I feel it.
And essentially ended up flipping out on my friends, thinking that they were FBI, right? Thought they were
Uh,
FBI, had been like tracking me in New York this whole time, and all this craziness. I Ohio, right? So I had to get on a plane, right? So in this manic paranoid state, I have to go through the airport, right? And I'm dealing with TSA, and they're throwing bags everywhere. You put the cell phones in a little basket, right? I remember I had she put the cell phone basket down like right in front of me, and I thought I was supposed to take one of the cell phones, right? So I literally took one of the cell phones, and then I went to the bathroom, and the guy, like, the guy whose cell phone I took had actually he was like, I think you took my cell phone on accident, and I like gave it back to him, right? And I was like trying to like grab a lady's bag. Then I was on the airport. I was on the airplane. I'm
That's
freaking out. I'm
wild.
thinking the airplane is gonna crash.
Of
I'm thinking
course.
like I'm trying to get
That's so
assassinated.
scary. That's so scary going on an
Delta is
airplane
trying
like
to
that.
kill me.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, they're a
Yeah,
great
like in
airline.
that,
I
and
love Delta.
I love, I love, I love them as well because look, they're headquartered right here in Cincinnati as well. So I
Dude,
appreciate
I pay
anybody
for
that's
the
helping the
little
homeland.
pass. I pay for the
But
pass that I could go hang out in their little clubs, dude. Like, I love Delta. You know what I mean? They're good.
yeah, the what's it called? The Delta Club? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I
I
know what
did
you're
that
talking
when I was manic
about.
too, because I
Anyways,
thought I'd be flying a lot. So I bought increased spending. I bought it. I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. It is. I've used it not that much. Doesn't make that much sense.
yeah,
Okay, keep going. So
but
that's really interesting.
yeah, but basically, right, like, my girlfriend drops me off, and funny enough, she actually gets right back on the airplane to go see her family, right? Because she just dealt with this whole shit. She's like, "What the fuck just happened?" You know what I'm
Oh
saying? Like, I
yeah.
have no clue what just happened,
My
right? Like,
fiance
she's
went on a
completely
vacation when
confused.
I was in the hospital.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it's too much. It's too much. It makes sense.
yeah, that's the best. And that's the best. And if you're dealing with somebody that has a manic episode, right? Like the best thing you can do, right, is just like try to be as calm as possible and just
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Patience.
reassure them that
Yeah.
everything is all right, and that sometimes maybe you just need to be silent, right? If they're going down the wet rabbit hole, right, you sometimes just need to like let them go. You know what I'm saying? Because any resistance that you give them at that time can be viewed as you being some type of um, bad entity, right?
Right.
Like
Or
I don't know
something
how many. I mean, in this. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say something that helps is the concept of like reframing. So it's like you don't want to um deny like what's going on, because this is like what's pretty much happening when you're having these super manic episodes where psychosis develops out of it, right? is that, you know, your ability to distinguish what reality is no longer good. So pretty much what someone's saying, which is why the argument gets so intense, is you're not in reality. Which if anyone says that to anyone, they're going to be like, no, what the heck are you talking about? I'm in reality. You're not in reality, right? Like that's the natural, you know, thing to do when that happens. Instead, you have to be like reminding people of common sense, where it's like, you know, the plane's not going to crash. You know, it's not even acknowledging really that what you're saying is wrong. It's giving another option, because it's just like, oh, like, you know, like maybe if you're going through sacred language, or you're going through, you know, different stuff just to like try to see patterns, you're like, oh, cool, like I see this too, but it might be good for you to go to sleep and you can study this in the morning because you've been up for 2 days, right? Like that might be just the more honest part of it that is easier to get across, where it's like, hey, how can I help you get to sleep right now? Versus like, you know, really trying to challenge the overarching theme. You know, sometimes that's where the doctors have to come in, because it's really that deep, where if it wasn't, you know, and you'll get into this, but like for me, when I got into Inpatient, that was a huge reality shock, because I was like, oh, they're not going to let me out until I'm like cognizant, you know what I mean? And like that's where the fake realities, they start to either get really bad because you're in an environment where you feel trapped, or you fight them and you end up, you know, with your hand on the wheel again. So you're in Ohio, you're flying to Ohio, you get there. Again, that plane ride must have been absolutely, like, I would have been terrified.
Scary.
You know, truthfully, I would have been terrified.
Completely
So
terrified.
what occurs?
See,
what occurs then? We're about to go in.
We're about to go in, right? So keep in mind, at this point, I'm on the quest, right? I'm on a quest, right? I thought my mom was like, because my mom kept saying it's time to go home, right? And I'm like, okay, what does go home mean? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like literally that's how deep in it you are, right? So my mom is literally, right, she's trying to essentially talk to me as emotionless as possible, right? And she's just like, Ish, do you need to go get help? Right. And I'm like, what does help mean? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, she's like, well, help is like, we can go down to University of Cincinnati Health, right? And we can just like, we can check you in there. Right. And I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta check in, right? Like literally playing a video game.
Yeah,
And
you're like,
I
I
get
get
down
that.
there.
Oh, I get that. Ooh,
I'm
I get
in
that.
the inpatient, right? Yeah, exactly, right? Like I'm like, okay, like, right, because once again, I'm about to be inducted into the secret society, right? So like, yeah, like I'll go check in, right? And then what's crazy is as we're going down there, right, there's cops and there's like weird stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? There's like literally cops are pulling over this group of girls that look to be 16 to 18. I'm like, what's going on here? Am I supposed to record this? Is this my big moment, right? How I go viral or whatever and explode?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like literally. And my mom's like, no, you got your own journey to focus on. I was like, okay. So she takes me into Inpatient. Of course, when I'm in Inpatient, right, somebody else comes in at the same exact time, right? This guy also says that he's from New York. You know what I'm saying? This guy says that he has the same exact doctor, right? I was like, are you on Adderall, blah, 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 right? And he's agreeing with me because he too is manic, right? So we're building up this whole manic story
Oh my
with
God,
each
dude, that
other,
happened to me
right?
too. You
And
got to be careful with friends you make in there.
gotta be careful. So the doctors are like, yo, these mofos need the medication and they need to be like sedated or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because
They
we
need help. They need
basically
help.
built this whole, because I was like, hey, if you're right, like I say my Adderall doctor's name, right? And he's like, oh, that's the exact name of my Adderall doctor, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this happened. He said his roommates tried to kill him, right? I was like, oh, your roommates tried to kill you? Oh, wow. Like, I think my friends were the FBI and like they were trying to trap
They
me,
were like
right? So
setting
like
me
we're
up.
having this,
Yeah. You share your paranoia. It
this
becomes something where it's a shared
whole,
delusion. It's really bad.
it's literally a shit. It just merges, right? It merges seamlessly, right? And then
It's imagine
he
like
says we have
you're all in Narnia, right? and you're talking
Yeah.
about stuff in Narnia, and everyone's like, no, we need you in London. They're like, we need you to be in London, and you're like, no, this beaver is talking right now, and you're like, the beaver's not talking to
Yeah.
us. That's just you. And it's like, oh, you need to come back. You know what I mean? And if you talk to another guy that goes, oh, I'm in Narnia too, you're like, oh, okay, like that's fine for you
Yeah.
too. But it ends up being something where if everyone else is in London, you know what I'm saying, is in wartime London, it looks really weird because the things you're saying just legitimately don't make sense.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
anyway, continue.
Yeah, man. So long story short here, like at this point, right, I'm going to, I don't know what they call it, intake or whatever, and I go, and basically you're it's a big old room. At least this is my experience, right? You're in a big
Uh-huh.
room as I'm going in there, right? Keep in mind, this is also during COVID too, right? So like, ain't nobody trying to get sick. They're putting a bunch of people that we really don't know, you know what I'm saying, in the same room. So I'm like, all right, am I gonna get COVID? I'm freaking out about that. As I'm walking, right, I see all these people, just sleeping, right? Like just sleeping. And I'm like, what's going on? Right? Everything looks weird, everything looks strange, right? The medical people and the medical staff, right? They essentially are trained to like agree with you in a sense, right? To be
Yeah.
super agreeable, right? So like you think that they're validating your manic episode as well. You know what I'm saying? And then I remember laying down in bed, right? And just observing what was happening, right? Observing, right? And I remember getting up at one point and being like, and knocking on the window, right? Because basically they ignore you, is what they do. They like have to
Yeah,
ignore
yeah,
you to
yeah.
a
They're
certain
not they're not
extent.
trying to
But they're
socialize
like,
with you.
I'm like,
They're trying to
no, yeah,
socialize.
they're like, yo, these are a bunch of manic,
Crazy
crazy people.
people.
Like
They're
we
trying
can't
to,
be
yeah, yeah.
right.
They're trying to,
And
unless you
me,
speak to the nurse, they're not going to speak to you first. You know what I mean?
exactly,
They
exactly.
might
That
they
was
might
that
check in and say
that rhymes
hello, how are you? You doing okay? You know what I'm saying? If you're like looking dejected
literally.
or something. But outside of that, there's not like conversation.
Exactly. And more people come in as I'm there for longer and longer. You know what I'm saying? I was probably in the intake place for about, I don't know, probably like 4 to 5 hours, something like that. Right. But I remember as people were coming in, right, certain people are violent and they're thrashing and they're like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
this and that. Right. And normally, right, I'm a very well-spoken individual. You know what I'm saying? I'm super succinct, right? So I'm like, okay, let me
Yeah,
just use my intelligence here because I know exactly what's going on right now, right? These people have
right.
all been, somehow brainwashed by the internet, to make them feel a certain way, right? So I'm knocking there. I'm like, hey, I think I know what's going on here. Like, right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're just
yeah.
completely ignoring me, and I'm sitting there. So
Yeah,
I just
they
sit back
are.
down on the bed. I'm just sitting. I sit back down on the bed, and then I remember, right? So one of the things about being manic, right, is that you think everybody's speaking to you figuratively, right, and not literally, right. So I
Yeah,
remember at one
yeah.
point, literally asking my nurse, I was like, "Do you mean that figuratively or literally?" Right? And she was like, "I mean that literally." I was like, "Wait, have you been speaking literally this whole time?" And she was like, "Yeah, I've been very like cut and dry with you. Like it's been very straightforward what I've been saying."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I was
I
like,
mean they have to be. They have to be.
exactly. And then I was like, wait a minute, I've been taking you figuratively this whole time. I thought you were like trying to like code something or like, like give me like the codes to like what I'm supposed to be doing here. And
Yeah, like a
she's like,
secret.
no.
Like you're trying to like yeah. You're like trying to
Yeah,
like
like
let there
she's
be a
trying to
secret.
protect the secret, right?
Right.
Like there's this big secret, right? And she's trying to protect the secret, and then she's like, "Yeah, there's no secret.
She's like,
I've
sir,
been
there's no
literal this
secret.
whole
We're just
time."
trying to get you
So then
better.
at this point, exactly at this point, right? At least one brain cell of logic is working properly, right? And I'm like, all right, so what I need to do is not associate with these people, and I need to lay down. I need to lay down, and I need to chill out, right? So I lay down, I chill out. I'm calm. What's so messed up is I remember, and this is just so you guys understand how deep and how real this feels and how like fantasy oriented mania is, right? I remember talking to a kid, right? And I was like, you didn't he had a note, he had a note in his hand with a number, right? And he passed me the number, right? And the kid's name was Tristan. And I guess he wrote his mom's phone number on there or whatever. And I was like, what is this? And he was like, he was just like, just call it. I was like, what is this number? And then he was like, just call it. And then he was like, I was like, bro, like, what is this? He was like, it's supposed to be like the number for my mom or whatever. And I've literally told this kid, I was like, bro, I think, did you dial this number? He was like, yeah, I dialed it earlier and it wasn't working. And I was like, bro, I think your mom blew up. Like that's how manic it was. Like I literally thought that number like led to some bomb. And I told this kid that his mom blew up. And he's like, are you serious? I was like, yeah,
Oh my
bro. I was like,
God.
bro, don't. I was like, bro,
That's
don't touch that
crazy.
phone, bro. Yo, what's so funny is
Yeah.
I
I
don't
get
even
it.
I don't even know if I've told anybody this. I literally kind of forgot about that until now. So it's funny that it came up, but that's how serious it is, right? And
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
super
essentially after
serious.
that, right? So that yeah,
No,
super serious,
the
right?
reason
Me and
the
this
reason I
kid
laughed is
actually
because
ended
I'm
up
like, oh, I could have done that too. You know what I mean? I'm just like straight up, I could have done that too. I even had a
yeah.
list of all my phone numbers on a piece of paper. I still have it actually. And I was doing that
See,
too. So like ultimately, you know,
because that's the logical thing to do, right? Is to give this person a list of all the phone numbers, right? Because like they're in some heightened weird state. So give them a list of their phone number with their mom on it. Okay, very simple, like very literal,
yeah.
right? That makes
If you
sense.
need to
That's
reach your
logical,
mother,
right?
here it is right here. You know what I mean? You don't need anything else.
Exactly.
It's right here.
But I'm like, bro, I think they blew your mom up. You know what I'm
Oof,
saying? And this kid,
oof.
right? And what imagine what I did to that kid, right? But what's funny is we ended up becoming like kind of friends, you know. And I was in this intake for, you know, the rest of the day. You know, we woke up that next morning. I was like kind of coming to my senses, right? And I told this kid, I was like, yo, I think I was like tripping. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think your mom's fine, you know. And basically the lady comes up to me, my nurse comes up to me, and it's a new nurse. Of course, it's a new nurse, right? And she's like, she doesn't say, do you want to check yourself in? That's not what she said to me, right? Because at this point, I'm only on a 24-hour hold, right? So here are the legal things that you need to understand, right? In case anybody ever goes into a manic episode or you yourself ever go to a manic episode, right? Is that right? There's two levels of inpatient, right? So there's the intake. The intake is just a 24-hour hold, right? That's it. And then there's checking yourself in, right? So with this lady, the way she delivers it to me, and I know she delivered, she did not say, do you want to check yourself in? Right? Because at this point, I want to go back home. I want to be with my mom and my
But
family. Right?
everyone
It's
wants to go
been
home. Everyone wants to go home. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah. And she says, okay, do you want a comfortable bed and a room
Except
to
for one of my
yourself?
roommates that was homeless. He was chilling. He was chilling. He enjoyed being there. He was
Yeah,
getting
I'm
3 hot
sure he
meals,
was.
bro. He was there.
Yeah.
He was fine. He was reading
Yeah.
magazines. He had a very chipper attitude. I was like, this guy right here
Yeah.
has figured it out.
Yeah, they give you juice. You know what I'm saying? It's
No,
great.
you got
You know what I'm
juice, you got
saying?
chips. Like
If you're
it was
homeless,
almost like summer camp minus the
snacks.
activities.
It was
Minus the
literally summer
activity.
camp. It was
They
literally.
treat
I
you
mean,
like
it
a new
was
camper.
basic, right? That's they treat you like children. That's the thing,
Hmm.
because in a sense, your mind is below the level of a child at that point. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah,
being completely
yeah.
honest.
There's many children that know
And
their parents haven't blown up just on a day-to-day basis. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
They're
yes,
fine. They're fine.
exactly. But you know, this lady comes up to me, right? Because I was only on a 24-hour hold, right? So the lady comes up to me, she's like, we can get you a private room, you can have a bed to yourself, right? Because I'm in here with 30
Yeah,
other
the
people whom I
squad.
don't know, telling kids that their mom's blowing up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, yes, yes, I will take the private room.
Please.
and of course, you know, I take the private room, they put me in there, you know, and you know, I just start the thing reloops itself, right? Because I call my mom, right? Because the phone in the intake was not working, right? That's why I thought the kid's mom blew up, right? But the phone in the, you know, once they took me upstairs, right? That's the other thing too. She was like, "Do you want to go upstairs?" Right? So I'm like, "Oh, upstairs. Okay. Are we gonna am I gonna meet
Wait, what
God
does
or
that
something?
mean?
Like, am I gonna
Yeah,
meet
what
some
does that mean?
aliens? Like, yeah, you know." But anyways, I go in this room, you know, the room's nice, it's big, right? You got a lot of space in there. But now I go to the payphones, or not the payphones, but the phones, they look like payphones. And I call my as a matter of fact, they offered me like a Nokia. They offer you like a regular, I don't know if they did this for you, but they offered me like a normal, like not smartphone, right? So that you can't go on the internet essentially. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, no, I don't want to touch the phones, right? Because I was scared of my phone. I was afraid of technology, everything, right? I was like, no, I don't want the phone. They're like, why don't you want the phone? Or they're like, you sure? Basically, they didn't even say that. They were like, you sure you don't want the phone? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure I don't want it. So I go to the payphone, right? Because I got to use the analog technology. And
Yep.
I talked to my mother, right? This is like the next day. Talked to my mother, and they're like, well, Ish, you know, like, why'd you check yourself in? She was like, you were like apparently only on 24-hour hold. And I was like, what? I was like, wait a minute, what? And she's like, you checked yourself in further. And then it was COVID, right? So there was no visitors, right? And they were like, okay, you can maybe visit after 3 days, right? But
Right.
it was 3 business days and the weekend didn't count. And this was on like a Friday, right? So like,
Yeah, so
so
see you Wednesday.
basically, exactly. Literally, that's what it was. It was see you Wednesday, potentially, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
So I'm like,
hopefully.
wait a minute. So I was forced to be in there at that point until Wednesday minimum. So I'm like, wait a minute, mom, what are you talking about? I was like, did you want me to come here? And she was like, you wanted to go there, and the lady said that you checked yourself in. I was like, mom, I didn't check myself in. She asked me if I wanted a private room and a bed for myself. And at this point, my mom is now sketched out, right? She doesn't really know what's going on. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah, yeah.
saying? Like if I'm telling the truth or if
Well,
I'm manic, like
the
she
thing
just
is
has
they can
to
hold
go with
you,
the
right?
doctor.
They can hold you. So like
Yeah,
that's part of it too, is like when they're like, hey, you can get a private room, you can get a private bed, whatever, like they're checking you in. You know what I mean? And that's part of the
exactly.
process too, right? Where the doctors can just be
Facts.
like, hey,
Facts.
we think it's time, like we want you to come and spend some extra time here.
Yeah. And dude, let's be real too. The medical system is a little corrupt. So look, when they see you have good insurance that will pay for certain things,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Because if I didn't have insurance, that whole ordeal would have been like $25,000, right? But with insurance, they took care of $24,000 of it. So
Right, right,
I
right.
had to spend like $1,000 when all was said and done. But anyways, that's beside the point, right? So at this point, right, that because your mania goes up and down, right? Like you said in your previous video, there's mania, then there's like hypomania. You know what I'm saying? So there's small swings and then there's big swings.
Yeah.
So I was going down, you know what I'm saying? Now this whole ordeal, right? Because now I'm like, yo, these mofos just trapped me in here. They just purposely trapped me in here. So now the mania goes way up, you know, and I'm just like, what the heck's going on? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to talk to people. There's one lady who I think is like my grandma's spirit reincarnated. There's one guy who thinks he's like Trippy Red. There's another guy who's like, you know, who like you know, his back is all messed up because he did something. There's people who are pacing around, right? Like you're sitting
Oh,
there and
everyone's
you're
pacing.
trying to
I was a big pacer.
everyone everyone's pacing. Everyone's pacing. I'll tell you that much. Everybody's pacing. Um, and then there was even a discrepancy with my room, right? Because because you know they have the chart, right? The big chart where they show where everybody's room is, right? And I was like, yo, I'm looking at this chart, right? And I would just stare at this chart for like 20 minutes at a time. But one time I'm actually looking at it, and this was real, right? And I noticed that the number that they have me under is the room, because I was at the room on this end of the hall, but they had my name on the room at this end of the hall. So I'm like, what's going on here? And so I'd obviously go and try to tell them, right? And I'm being like my kind of like normal self at this point. And I was like, hey, like, I'm Ish.lucas. You guys have me in this room. And like
Right.
it says on the chart that I'm in this room, right? So the medical assistants get all frustrated with me. Which room are you in? What's your name? Blah, 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 this and that, this and that. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, and then I just left it alone. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, yo, I'm going back to the room that y'all put me in, you know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna go to sleep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, facts.
Long
Probably for the
story.
best. Probably for the best. All right, so
Exactly.
you start to settle into inpatient. It's very difficult in the sense that you're trying to do normal human interactions. The nurses and people, which is understandable because they're all getting overworked, are like exasperated at the most basic thing. The interactions in between the patients are not healthy. That's something that I had as well, where like you're trying to like make sense of what's going on with other people that are like really not together. And so they're like, you know, your mom's blown up. Oh my God, yeah, it is. Or like I would, you know, I thought that I was getting tested too by the FBI, and like this one dude would, I remember him looking out the window, pretending that he was communicating with someone else that in the hospital outside of our thing. And he's like making signs to, you know, out of the window and stuff. And I'm like watching him sign. And I'm like, is he communicating with someone? I'm like looking to try to find the person he's communicating with, you know, and it's just absolutely, it's heresy, you know, like there's no sense or means to that. So tell me a little bit about how you got out of inpatient, and then, you know, what that like looked like as far as, you know, that kind of piece. And then I think we can get to, if you want, or we could save it for another video about the other hospital visit, because that could be another video in itself.
Yeah, I think we should, it could be a different video, but I'll mention it shortly here. Yeah, so I mean, essentially, right, the way to get out of the inpatient is to be normal, right? So essentially it got to the point, right, where I just kind of was like, okay, obviously, you know, there's something happening, right? But I just need to like be as normal as possible, right? I know how to be normal. I know what that seems like, what that looks like, right? So I remember just kind of being like, you know, like let me just chill. You know what I'm saying? I've like when people were doing crazy things, right? When people were doing crazy things, I was just like, hey, it'll be okay. It'll be all right. And I think I went around just telling everybody that it'll be okay. And what's so funny is there's maybe like 20, 25 people up there, right? Maybe like 10 people that I said like it'll be okay too. And I remember after the last person that I said it'll be okay too, my nurse actually came and got me and she was like, oh, you can leave now, right? Like she was like, we're gonna get you on in a conversation with the therapist, right? And then you're discharged, right? So, you know, divine timing, whatever you want to call it, you know, everything was, you know, I talked to the therapist. Therapist is like,
You had become a
you got to
healer
treat
again.
yourself healthier.
You were back to healing,
Exactly.
even, you know what I mean? In your own way, in your own microcosm, you were healing and helping people that were, because people are scared. People are scared in that environment, you know? There are young kids in there, 19, 20, you know?
Literally 19, 20, 18. But also, right, you have to, you know, go through that dark night of the soul, right? You have to battle those demons, right? Battle those demons with the sword, right? That's the paladin, you know what I'm saying? And then you learn how to heal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like that's the journey of the paladin from warrior to paladin, you know? And you know, ultimately, like you just have to calm down. You have to there were drugs in my system, right? That had been there for a year, right? So I needed that to get out of my system. I took sleeping pills. Exactly. I needed to detox. I needed to not do anything for a week, basically. I did a lot of coloring, you know what I'm saying?
Dude,
literally
I still have my
coloring and just
crowns.
listening to music. And yeah.
I kept a goodie bag from
have,
inpatient, dude. I kept a goodie bag.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom. I think my mom put the drawing that I did on Inpatient like on our refrigerator, literally like I
That's
was a kid
hilarious.
again. Um, yeah.
That's
So
hilarious.
that's how you get out. And then I saw my parents, and I was like, hey, everything's cool. Now keep in
Mhm.
mind, right? Here's the important part, right? It doesn't just like end at Inpatient. You know what I'm saying? Like
No.
you still kind of, I mean, I had to take a 3-month leave off of work. You know,
Yep.
that was important, right? Because I kept going back and forth once I got out of Inpatient on whether I was going to work or whether I wasn't going to work, right? Because I thought I was supposed to work. I've been, in New York City
Yeah.
grinding,
I
learning how
look,
to do
I
this. You know what
struggled
I'm
with
saying?
that too. I literally was like, how can I take time off? I just took time off to go inpatient, but in reality, you have to heal because the actual process of inpatient is a lot like shock therapy. You know what I mean? Like it will shock you back to your senses, which is good, but it's something that you have to then recover from in itself, right? Like you were on the edge. So it's like even if you take one
Exactly.
step back, that you're still very close to the edge. Like you need to continue to
Yeah.
progress back to normal before you start to load in, a lot of extra stressors and stuff like that. So I totally, I totally get that. I left the city for
Yeah.
like
And,
2 months, 2 months.
yeah. And I was. It's funny because I was in Cincinnati for because I came home in June, like a month and a half. I was in Cincinnati, and then I went back to New York. And it's funny how like New York, like the hypomania at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like essentially triggered as soon as I got back in New York. And I was like, yo, honestly, I gotta leave.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
ended up moving to Chicago after that. But right, the main thing is right. I had to take those 3 months off of work, and I had to go
yeah.
get my
And like
mindset
the
together and
reality
get
is,
healthy.
um, and I mean, we both know Barkley, but he'll be someone that'll be on the YouTube channel at some point for everyone else to meet. But like he
Mhm.
says it all the time, like, New York creates manic behavior. I'm like, yeah, it does. It's a
Yeah,
city that never sleeps. The number one thing to not, creating manic behavior is sleep deprivation, right? And like this is literally a city
absolutely.
that doesn't sleep, and will keep you moving at such a fast pace. Where like that was something too that I even, remember and think about constantly as I'm doing all this stuff now, is that just because I'm in New York doesn't mean I have to move at a New York pace every single day of every single moment. You can take time to heal, be conscious, take care of the bases, because if you don't do that, um, you're going to end up in inpatient, right? And that's something that both of us experience, where it's like if you just work, 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 and you're, taking Adderall to work, which is what we were both doing, and
Yep,
doctors will prescribe it to you. You know what I'm saying? It's not even like you have to do
absolutely.
anything to do that. Like they'll prescribe it to you. Out of a certain amount of time, your body just can't handle it. And it's like, it doesn't even know what you're doing anymore. Um,
Hmm.
I think
Yeah,
that'll,
and really quick on the Adderall tip, the one thing that was like that really like I've reflected about is like, when I would talk to my psychiatrist about the Adderall, right? One of the things that he was using to see if it worked was he was asking me like, how is everything at your job going, right? And I was killing it because I'm on
right.
Adderall, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
So
right, right,
I'm
right. You're
crushing
like
my
you're like
job. You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
slaying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was balling. I was making more money then. I mean, I'm making more money now after I'm off the Adderall, of course, because that's all spiritual alignment. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
we'll get
let's
into
go.
that in another
Let's
podcast.
go, baby.
And I'll get into my other I'll get into my other hospital story. We'll do another podcast. I'm really feeling that energy. But what I
Yeah,
want to say
absolutely.
just kind of in closing, right, is I want to leave you guys with something, but I also want to say something, right? You guys can probably feel, right? Like even as I was telling the story, I could feel, like how manic I was in that time. You know what I'm saying? So as you guys even play this back, you're gonna be like, damn, that's a crazy story. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a
Yeah.
movie. Like it literally is. It is an actual movie. It is actual video game stuff that happens.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
But I will say, I focus on the 5 pillars, right? And this is not necessarily Islam, even if that is your thing. But for me, it's, health, relationships, physical health. You got so health, physical, your mental, spiritual, and then did I say relationships already?
You did.
There's one more. And then so 4 pillars. Focus on those 4.
Sorry, we only need 4 to build a house.
And then like my bad, occupational.
All right, we got the last
is what
pillar.
it is, right? So like so you gotta have just like have it's about finding balance, right? Like life is not about, you know, being at extremes, right? Because if you drink too much, if you don't drink enough water, right, then you will die of dehydration. And if you drink too much water, you will die of water poisoning, right? So the key is to find balance, and you drink your 9 cups, right? Like your 1 gallon a day, and you're good. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to drink 10 gallons, and you don't have to drink no water at all. You know what I'm saying? You just drink your gallon a day and keep it moving. Find your balance, find your flow.
Absolutely.
Find your flow.
Dude, gotta find your flow. That's what saved me, dude. On what was I saying here? You know, not fishing net, what's the word here? Safety net 85, right? As you're crashing through your manic situation, you might be fortunate enough to hit like the 17th or 18th thing that actually, you know, stops you from crashing. But yeah, so that's going inpatient with Jake and Ish. That's the story right there of, you know, what it's like to experience going into it, the paranoia of, you know, the stuff that happens beforehand, the getting into the actual inpatient where, you know, it's really just a wild community. You know, you're having conversations where, you know, they may or may not be based in reality. You're trying to be civil with the nurses and like, you know, show them that you can be a functioning member of society, and they're just, you know, they may or may not want to engage in a conversation with you, which is a crazy feeling. And that's something that, you know, you just really don't have a choice about, right? It's not until the doctors say that you're good, like you're not good. And, you know, just again, it kind of speaks to the fact that like this working culture that we've all grown up again, where it's like you're chasing to make it and you're chasing to do all this stuff. But in reality, if you're not taking time to literally treat your body, your soul, and everything else well, you could end up in the climax of sickness, which is, you know, going insane, going crazy, like literally losing your identity as Ish, my identity as Jake, like losing our balance of self and just letting all this stimulus and stuff take over. So, you know, I'm super thankful that you shared your story on the platform, and you know, I know a lot of people are going to enjoy this. I'm excited to drop it. We'll keep it raw and, you know, just have people enjoy the story. And from there, we can continue to just do a couple more. I know people are going to want to hear more from it. We can talk about the next trip into the hospital. We can talk about a bajillion other things and just keep it flowing.
Absolutely. And just like last thing, right? Like if anybody, you know, wants to know more about the story, or if they want to, you know, if they have their own experience and you kind of need help like navigating things, maybe you just experienced that exactly what we're talking about, and this like really resonates with you, right? At Vibe King Ishi, you guys know how to spell Vibe, you know how to spell King. Ishi is ISHY. On both YouTube and Instagram. Instagram is usually where I'm the most responsive. So I'll say, just like hit me up there and just say, yo, I saw your podcast with Jake, the Angel, you know, I saw your podcast with him and would like to talk to you some more, right? And I'm always down to chop it up and help people in any way I can.
Absolutely. And all that stuff will be in the description as well. You know what I mean? I'll make sure that is there so we can reach out to Ish. And let's keep doing it for the healing community, bro. Let's just keep, you know, healing it up. All right. With that being said, yo, much love for the bakery. This has been Going Inpatient with Jake and Ish. And see you guys next time.